All right, so the first thing that you want to do with this project is what you want to decide what shape you'd like the flags to be. So traditionally, there's a couple of different ways to do the flags that you're going to create. You can either do them as squares, which you've probably, and of course, I probably should make them a little bit more perfect than that. And you can either use them as a square or use them as a rectangle, or you've probably seen the ones that look like triangles. I'm gonna probably need to turn that fan that I have on, which I usually keep on while I'm using paint, but for right now it's getting a little bit hard to cut the fabric. Okay. So this is totally up to you what type of flag you'd like to use. The only thing you really need to remember, and it doesn't even have to be perfect shapes, but you do need to remember that you're going to need to fold it over the twine. So depending on how thick the twine is, you want to kind of gauge where you're going to do that fold, because we're going to hot glue the back of it this way. You may also choose to make it long enough so that it's on both sides, which then of course you'd have to make it longer, and maybe you want to put something on both sides of the prayer flag. So that's totally up to you, and that's an option you would have to think about before you get started. Yay! I remembered to tell you what to think about before you get started. All right, so I'm going to turn this fan off and then we're going to get going. All right, so as you can see, I have picked a rectangle shape for my flag. And my thought is I'm going to be folding it over. Now, to be super precise, I probably want to run an iron through here so there's not that crease there, but just for the sake of time, I'm probably not going to do that for right now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to keep my fabric remnants, because what I can do is I can take these shapes a little bit later and trace out the butterfly, for example, and put it on another one of the different colored fabrics. Okay? So now that I've chosen that shape, I'm now looking at all my other fabrics and seeing if I have enough fabric to use. And I see on this one I don't have enough fabric, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to improvise, and I'm going to use it because lengthwise it's fine, but I already know that it's going to be too, it's not going to be as wide as the other ones, and that's all right by me. Talked about this before, that it's really more for me about the process than it is about the finished product, though of course, you know, I want a lovely finished product too. I don't want it to look like junk, but again, I take creativity and use it as a means to teach and remind me about life, which is you don't always get what you want, right? And so how do you manage to keep your joy in the midst of disappointing times? And so even though it seems a little silly to think about that when it comes to fabric, I feel like if I get a chance to practice it here, I can do it a little bit better in life. Maybe just to be able to not take it in so seriously when it's happening. And mind you, obviously, that's a little bit, you know, glib when it comes to some really serious things that can happen in someone's life. But again, I mean, it's one of those things, well, where can you practice this at? And so I just choose to practice it with my creativity. All right, so that's 3 of my fabrics there. I love how those are coming together. This will be my fabric number 4. So one of the things you want to think about is how large or small your banner is going to be. So it's a prayer flag banner, I should call it. And really, it just depends on the time that you have allotted to do this. You can always work together as a group on, you know, 3 or 4 flags just to kind of keep you going, you know, as a group to see what you're doing collaboratively. But then you can always add more to your flag banner later, right? So sometimes, you know, you just don't really have any ideas when you're sitting in the group, but then when you get home, you come up with some really great ideas. Or I've always found sometimes it's like towards the end of me doing something, I come up with all these great ideas and I'm like, I want to go back and redo it. But so what I'm doing now is I'm going to just do it for 4 flags, okay? Just for the sake of time. And again, I'm looking at the back to see if I'm going to have enough fold over, and I'll actually fold this over so that I will remember not to put anything in the area where it's going to fold over onto the twine. All right, so they're all pretty good sized. Okay, and so then these are my 4 choices. And you know, even with just that, I mean, that will look fantastic, the colors, and wherever you're maybe envisioning putting these flags, you know, they're just a nice little remembrance of just some little things God may bring to your mind or your heart. All right, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take this fabric, I want to call it burlap, but it's not really burlap because this is the burlap over here. But it's a kind of a heavier denim is what it's called. You'll be able to find it at your local Michael's or fabric store. And I usually get about a yard of this because I like to stamp words and put things on fabric. I used to make these bracelets for a fundraiser, and so that's how I got started doing that. And so I'm going to have this available. I'm also going to cut some of this burlap just so I have it handy, so then I can play with it while we're doing the project to see whether or not I want to add it in or not. Another option would be to take these and sew them onto your fabric. So again, one of those things where it's just, you know, being creative about what you want to do. If you want to really, some people really love to sew and they find that very relaxing. And so if you were to take something, let's say, for example, this, let me move this denim out of the way, and add it on there, right? And you can either hot glue it or sew it, and then put the word smile on it, right? Could also take a heart. Isn't that fabulous? And I'm going to just wing it. Try to cut into the burlap. Probably be easier to fold it and cut it. Let's see if this even works at all. Let me see. All right. All right, it kind of doesn't look like a heart. Let me go ahead and fix it a little bit. Let's get it looking more like a heart. All right, that's a little bit better. And you can put that right there in the middle, right? Okay. So I might even leave that as one of the options because I really like how that looks. So let's talk about the stamping of the words. So this will be number 1, and I think I'm going to show you an option to sew this on. Okay. So words are funny, right? Sometimes words give deep, deep meaning, and other times, you know, nothing really comes to mind. Well, as I'm speaking to you, the word that comes up for me is deep. So I'll take the words, the letters D and E and P. One of the fun things about alphabet stamps is you can, you know, keep them all uniform. I actually have 3 or 4 sets of these, so you'll see on some of these that some of them are lowercase and some of them are uppercase and some of them have a more Roman look to it. Again, another fun way to just make it your own. All right, so when I'm using stamps, as I mentioned before, when I was using the heart stamp, I tend to like to paint the letters rather than just dipping it in the paint. So I'm going to get a paintbrush. This is actually a little bit too thick. Really prefer having a smaller paintbrush. And you can choose the black color like I did here, or you can choose a different color paint. I'm gonna maybe go with red. It's a color I don't use all the time. I want to make sure that paintbrush is nice and dry, so I had it in the water bowl. It does dry very quickly, so you want to get that paint on there, make sure it's not too thick, and then press it really good onto the denim. funny how things kind of interlace. So the yoga, at least the style of yoga that I teach, you have to do a lot of breathing exercises because you hold the poses for a little bit. And it's so funny because I find that when I'm using things like stamps, I have to breathe as I'm doing it. So it's very interesting how God's allowed different things to interlace in my life to be catalysts for growth. Okay, D-E-E, and then P. And then what I'll do after I stamp this is I'll go back around, and if the letters didn't get on there as rich as I like, I will just kind of dab the paintbrush very, very carefully. See, even as I'm doing that, I'm like, to just get it a little more richly embedded in there. And this is another one of those times where you might think, oh, I've ruined it. Please just step away from it. I promise you, sometimes it's not as bad as you think it is. And sometimes it's bad, but give it a minute, let it dry. Sometimes the way it dries in the denim, it actually looks quite nice. And that's what I'm definitely going to have to do here. All right, make sure and wash those letters when you're finished. So there's one way to do it. Another way to do it is to come up with the word and just paint it on there. So maybe the word trust. You'll have to figure out how the paint is working with the denim to figure out how hard or how soft you want to press, right? Maybe you want to write the word truth. Maybe you want to write the word true. I'll write true. Okay, so there's a couple of different options there, and again, we'll let that dry and see how that looks afterwards. And you may be working in a group, and maybe you don't like how it looks, and maybe your creative in the group might like it, and then you can have that experience of having done that for him or her and let them use it. So, all right, the next step I'd like to do is I'd like to sew this heart onto the banner, the one that says smile. So let me go and get some embroidery thread and I'll be right back. All right, so I have some thread and I have a needle and I have a couple of different choices for the embroidery thread, and I guess you just have to decide whether or not you want it, where you'd like to go with this. I'm gonna use this cream color and sew this on, and you could do two different colors if you'd like. You could do the burlap one color and then the word smile around the other. You could just do the word smile and just let the heart kind of hang, flapping in the wind. So these are all choices you're making as you go through this process. Yes, I was looking for the embroidery thread. I was thinking, oh, what if we put some feathers hanging down here? So like I said, I mean, that's the beauty about just making it your own, is you've now been introduced to a lot of different options, and so now it's just deciding, how you want to incorporate those things into each of the projects that we're doing now. So here I am. You can do just a simple stitch. You could do a little X's if you want. I'm just going in and out, and you of course can look on YouTube for different types of stitches if you're interested in doing something a little bit more elaborate. So you kind of get an idea of where I'm going with this. So I'm just going to put a couple stitches here, finish it off, and then we'll move to the next flag. Okay, so while we're waiting for the glue gun to warm up, I wanted to show a couple of other options that I didn't think to show you, but might be nice options. I have this lovely ribbon that you could also cut and hang off the bottom of the fabric or line it along the sides. How fun is that, right? And then I have more ribbon that says the word love that you could again take it and outline it along the bottom here. Of course, you could do something like this along the bottom, right? I found some feathers, so you could do similar to what we did with the dream catcher and maybe just attach it to your fabric or have it hang down off your fabric underneath somehow. I just leave that up to you to be creative with it. And then of course I have all these jewel ephemera pieces, keys, love bird's nests that you could probably would have to sew it on there. It's going to definitely give your flag a little more weight, so you'd have to be mindful of where you're putting it on the flag. But again, just really fun choices to make these individual, make them your own. And really the purpose of these prayer flags is to remind you to pray, right? And so you really want to pick things that when you see them evoke a feeling of prayer and of praise and of thanksgiving and of waiting on the Lord, right? It's a fun glue gun. There's a funny story about this glue gun. My daughter wanted this glue gun so bad, and it was right at Christmas time, and we'd already made the choices for what she was going to get for Christmas. But she just had it in this heart that she wanted this glue gun. And so my sister, kind of on the spur of the moment, says, I really want to get Josie something. What does she want? And I said, good news, there's something that she wants. She wants a glue gun. And so this was probably the most popular item that she got for Christmas. It was, hilarious how that always works. Anyway, so here we go. I'm going to try to adjust this so we can see what I'm doing here. All right, so I'm going to attempt to use the glue gun as a means to attach fabric. And probably you guys who've already used glue guns before, I'm like, yes, Robin, it will work. But I will be honest and say this is, I'm not even kidding you, the absolute first time I've ever used a glue gun. Yes, this is very true. I don't know why. I guess I came into it just like with the Mod Podge story. I just thought, what is the big deal about hot glue? And let me add that this hot glue has glitter glue, right? So, it's not just a hot glue gun. It's a hot glue gun that uses glitter. So if you see that I may be even doing this not necessarily the right way, it's because I seriously have never used one before. But it is looking like this is the way to go. We don't have to do all that sewing. So I offer that to you as an option. You don't have to sew. But if you like sewing, and I do like sewing actually, for the longest time I wanted to learn how to sew, and there's funny stories around my friends trying to teach me how to sew. And so what I would do is I just got really, really fast at hand sewing. And so now I do have a sewing machine, just kind of out of like determination to show my daughter how to sew. And I've sewn like lots of fun skirts. If you ever see me around, you'll see me probably in a skirt that I've sewn. But the funny thing about it is I still love to hand sew. So, just go figure, right? All right. Hold on. I think I'm going to have a couple of them hanging down because it matches so nicely with the gray that I have. So I'm going to cut this. Make them as little banners to hang down behind there. Let me show you what I'm doing. Okay, so I think I'm going to just add those there onto the bottom. So I'll probably even that up, or I might cut the strips in half. All right, so that's, so you can actually see it. All right, so that's number one. And then you saw me do the one with the heart on it. And now we know I can use the glue gun to glue down the heart. Let's see if I can actually get the key to stay on there. Yikes, that's no joke about how that burns. Okay, so let me glue down this heart. Seeing if I can do the same thing with the key. And we'll see, like I said. It might be way too heavy to try it, but I'll give it a shot. Set that one aside. Okay, next one. It's the fabric with the words, "My soul finds rest in you, God." Not too much. Like I said, I don't like that it has to be super perfect. Again, like I said, I just feel like everything about at least my creativity process is reminding me that I'm not perfect. It doesn't have to be perfect. God's not asking me to be perfect. He's asking me to love Him and to walk in the world as He has desired for me to walk. And I try my best. And this reminds me of that. Okay, seriously, this feather is fabulous. So we're going to try the fabric, the feather. Okay, yeah, necessary. All right, let's put a little bit more down. Okay, and again, I mean, you might even want to go back and still sew. Maybe you want a little bit of the embroidery thread to be showing. It's totally fine. You may go home and you may want to add some new things to what you started. And so I would just suggest that you make the string a little longer for the twine, for when you're making the fur flags. That way it gives you room to add on if you want to, or you can just cut it, so there's no harm in making it long, and then you just cut it if you're not going to do anything more, right? Isn't that nice? Deep love. Isn't that so cute? Okay, so I can cut that off a little bit. And then attach it on. All right, so there we go. So now I have the flags all ready to go, and I just need to decide, let me go ahead and unplug this glue gun. I need to decide how I want to place them onto my twine. So we will. All right, so you have a couple choices. You can do something super cool, like braid a bunch of these twine together, or if it's thick enough, you can just keep it in a single knot. I'm going to go ahead and at least double it. And you want to kind of get a sense when you're cutting it that it's long enough to at least accommodate your 4 flags, or how many other flags you're going to do. So I'm going to go ahead and double it up. And now I'm going to look at my flags and decide which one I want to put on first based on the color. So I have like 2 brights and 2 yellows. And so I probably want to put the yellows on the end. So I'm going to choose this one first. I'm going to fold it over the back. And again, if you've chosen to fold it completely over, that's fine. Or you can choose to sew it over. There's another option for you. When you're folding it over, you want to make sure you're folding it in such a way that you're not losing what you've put on the front part. And you want to leave enough space on the end of the string that you can hang it up somewhere if you want to. Okay, so now that I've got that set, get the glue gun, go ahead and add the glue on. If you need to spread it out, be sure to use the tip of the glue gun as opposed to your finger. Little disclaimer. How I know, I just did it the other way and it was not pleasant. All right, so take that glue, fold it over to meet the edge, Press it down, make sure that the twine is not in the way. Or if you want the twine to be in the way so that it can't move, you can do that as well. But I've made it so that you can still move the twine in between. All right, then you take your next one. Same thing. Choose the smile one next. It's so funny with this tutorial, I've been seeing prayer flags, I don't know, everywhere when I look on different creativity sites. And I've been wanting to do this for so long, so just really happy to finally sit down and to do them. I've made these little postcards that I've put into kind of a format of prayers and put them on yarn before and sold them that way. Or I shouldn't say yarn, ribbon. So again, I just like the idea of having the reminder of prayer surrounding you. And making sure that you're not holding it over so far that you can't, that it's covering up something you've done on the other side. And as you can see, I mentioned the option of folding the fabric over so that you have two complete sides that you can work on. I mean, that's another option. This may be your first set of prayer flags, but maybe it's something you do when you pray for a child or pray for a parent, and you give it to them as a gift that these are the prayers I've been praying over you. I mean, what a lovely thought to know someone's been praying specifically for certain things over you. So, all right, last step. All right, so here we go. Move this glue gun out of the way. Let me see if I can give you a full shot. Okay, so this is my rendition of my prayer flags. As you can see in my room, I have it in a couple different places. I have hearts hanging up. So that'd be one option for where I'd put the flags, is over there. I have these windows that I could also have them sit over the window. I could just put some nails over here on top, on the wall here, or wherever I sit to pray. I mean, that's another nice way. Again, just kind of putting yourself in this presence of, I'm going to pray right now. It's just really, it's so funny because we get into these situations where it's like, I should just pray. Well, the reality is, a lot of times you're so overwhelmed with life, you don't know what to pray. So these are just little reminders, little, I guess I would say, offerings to God, saying, I want to pray. I want to pray better. I want to pray more. And, there may be times where you want to do a flag a day, right? So that you can take that time, and as you're creating one of these flags, you're praying. All right, well, this is the fifth and final installment for the My Creative Peace Facilitator training series for the crafts that they're doing throughout the book, My Creative Peace. I hope you've enjoyed them as well. Please make sure to come on by if you would like to talk to me more about becoming a Christian creativity facilitator. My website is www.faithandcreativity.com. My name is Robin Norgren, and I thank you so much for coming by.